Hi, third graders. Welcome back to our reading workshop lesson. Today we're going to have our 12th nonfiction reading lesson, and we have some really fun things that we're going to do today. So, as you know, our job as an informational text reader has been noticing and interesting facts, learning different strategies on how our authors are setting up the books. That's by creating the different graphic organizers that we've been looking at, that page of the different text features, taking notes in our reading notebook that we have at home, taking notes on our sticky notes. We've been doing a lot of that. Just yesterday, we had the opportunity to then teach all the interesting facts that we've been learning to someone else and using all of those things that we know that a good presenter needs to have. But one thing that we must remember is that we have to do more than just remembering the cool and interesting facts. We have to be able to think about what we are reading and what we are learning. Because when we think more about what we're reading, when you think of a fun fact that you shared yesterday, if you put a little more thought into that fun fact, I bet you would have been able to relate it to something else you've learned and answer maybe an even deeper question that maybe the friend or the parent or family member was learning about. So it's important that not only are we going to remember the facts, but we need to start thinking a little bit more. And I'm going to explain that to you when I show you the sample of what I mean. So our job today is when we talk with others about the different topics, we need to also listen so that we can grow our ideas and not just talking with others about our topic. For example, when I show you this sample, I'm going to be talking to the book. So sometimes we talk back to the book, even though the book can't talk to us, but you'll see what I do when I think of some facts and then I restate it to the book. So that brings us to our nonfiction lesson number 12. And when we talk with others, we need to listen to what is taking place so that we can grow onto those ideas. It is important that we think about what we read about and what we're learning so that we can add on to it. And the student chart is going to be very valuable for this lesson. This is something that you're going to want to look at the Google Doc or possibly print off so that when you have the student chart, these are the prompts that I will be sharing with you and that you too will be using when you are talking with others, and others meaning also the book, when you're talking to others or the book, and you are listening to be able to develop the ideas. So you might say, I wonder why. You might say, maybe it's because, stating a fact that you've learned. You might have, this makes me think, or I used to think, but now I understand. So these are some prompts that you'll be able to use for this type of lesson, okay? Because we know that as a reader, we want to be able to open our mind and share as many growing ideas as we possibly can. All right, so I want to show you exactly what I mean. I'm going to be referencing from our Mentor Text Penguins a page in here that is on penguin facts. And this bottom fact has this picture that goes with it. As you can see, the penguins are walking in a straight line, kind of like they're in school, walking down the hallway. And this fact says, penguins often follow one another in a line. It looks as if they're playing a game of follow the leader. Okay, so I could remember that fact quite easily, but now I need to think about it, and I need to talk back to the book, and here's what I mean by that. With that fact, I could say, I wonder why penguins walk in a line. Maybe it's because, okay, so that's the other prompt. Maybe it's because when they go and live in those rookeries, and if you recall, we read about that before, when they're living in those rookeries, they are so jam-packed of up to millions of penguins that maybe it is very important that they do walk in a line so that it helps keep up with the congestion so that they actually can have a path to go so that it's not just this jam-packed, kind of like a jammed parking lot. Okay, so readers, what I did there is I read the fact, I listened to it, right? I could remember it, but then I added on to it. I talked back to the book. I said, my first prompt was, I wonder why. I wonder why penguins walk in a line. My second prompt to go back to that was, maybe it's because, and then I thought back, why do I think they maybe walk in lines? The author didn't tell me, but I've been reading enough. I'm an expert enough on penguins now. Maybe I can pair it to something I've read. And I remember them being in these large rookeries, which, as we know, has tons of penguins. So that's why I said, maybe it's because they know it's important to be in a line because they're going to be in a rookery eventually. And how else are they going to travel around when it's jam-packed with penguins? So I was able to listen to myself from my prior reading. So now when I share this fact with someone, I might add that on with what I think. Okay. So another fun fact is that penguins gesture in many different ways. So they sometimes bow to other penguins. Scientists have found that they sometimes roll their eyes, or, as we've read before, they fluff up their feathers. These are on their head or even on their body. These are all ways that penguins communicate and show gestures to other penguins. So now I'm thinking to these prompts right here, and I want to dig a little bit deeper to that. Okay. So my new prompt that I'm going to start with is, this makes me think that penguins have many different ways of communicating with each other because it's important when they're hunting, and especially when they have the little babies, they have to be able to do all these different gestures. So, new prompt, this makes me realize that there's probably other gestures that we haven't discovered yet in penguins, because if we've only have learned that they bow and roll their eyes and fluff their feathers, I bet there's other ways that they communicate with each other. For example, I remember reading about them squawking to alert other family members or to mate. So I believe that those are some things that penguins can do with their gestures. Okay, so third graders, that was another example. This time I used the prompt, this makes me think, which is this one. So I shared what I read, but then I thought back to other things that we've read together in this book, and I was able to add more detail. So that's what your job is. Moving forward, when you are reading and you come to important facts that you want to remember, that's great. I want you to remember those facts, but I want you to push your thinking, and I want you to think about those facts and think, is there anything else in the book that you can add to what you want to remember that will make that fact even more valid and bigger? I think you can definitely do that. I will have the student chart, like I said, on our learning document. And today, if you get a chance to talk about and teach something that you've read, I want you to push it and add on something from the book that will also support that cool fact, that fact that you want to remember, because I know you can handle that. Okay. All right. Make sure you're reading 20 to 30 minutes today. And I am very proud of you. I'm loving the things that I keep seeing come over about all the reading that you've been doing. So keep up the great work, and I will see you again soon. All right. Happy reading, friends.